So before I introduce our speaker for tonight, I'd really like to say just a really warm welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming to the Plant-Based Eating Speaker Series event. Some of you are from the group, some of you are not. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Emma Lebez-Laroque. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, a certified plant-based chef, a Food for Life instructor, and the creator of the Plant-Based Eating Support Network group. So these monthly events are part of the Plant-Based Eating Support Network group, which is an online subscription-based group that provides ongoing nutrition and cooking support for people who are interested in learning more about the benefits and practicalities of a whole foods plant-based lifestyle. A plant-based lifestyle, as we all know, have so many benefits for our health, for the environment, and for the animals that we share the planet with. And there are so many incredible people working to raise awareness about these benefits. The speaker series is designed to bring the voices of a variety of plant-based experts to members of the support network group, and I'm pleased to be able to open these events to members of the public as well. We feature medical professionals, doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, naturopaths, as well as individuals who have inspiring change stories to share and also groundbreaking and inventive chefs. So on to our speaker for tonight. I met Kaylin when her husband Jim, when they opened Seven Sprouts Deli a few years ago. What a delight it was to have a vegan deli in Powell River. Besides bolstering our local vegan scene with Seven Sprouts, Kaylin, which is no longer open, just so I didn't say that, that's on the back burner for now, right? But you're doing a lot of other cool things that we're going to hear about. But Kaylin is also a certified personal training specialist, a yoga instructor, a vegan cooking and baking enthusiast, a mother, and an ethical vegan of 15 years. She loves to find different ways to move her body every day and enjoys getting outside to run, hike, and camp. Kaylin graduated from the University of British Columbia with a degree in English and is also a graduate of the Langara Film Arts program, where she studied writing and production for film and television. Currently, she's the program director for a private language school and is also a teacher training for TESOL and a written communications reader. When she's not geeking out about grammar, which I can relate to, exploring nature or lifting weights, she is in the kitchen whipping up delicious vegan dishes. I think a lot of us have been grateful to sample some of those, such as large soft pretzels, cupcakes, and seitan creations. She lives in Powell River with her husband, Jim, and 4 of their 7 children. So Kaylin has an amazing blog that I'm going to share the link to in the chat today. If you haven't already checked it out, make sure you do. And she's going to talk a little bit more about that as well. She also has a great Instagram page at Kaylin's Chaos. And so a huge welcome and thank you for being here tonight, Kaylin.
Thank you for the lovely introduction.
So I'm just going to spotlight you, if that's okay, so that we can, and we have a few other people joining us here. Welcome. And so can we get started by, I just love it if you would talk a little bit about your journey. How did you get started on this path and what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a long journey, I can say that for sure. So I decided to go vegetarian when I was 12. At the time I lived in a really small town and my mom had a bit of a panic attack and she said, okay, this is okay, but you have to still eat fish, because she didn't know what to feed me, which was fair. So I spent my teen years as a pescatarian. And then in my late teens and early adulthood, I suffered some pretty serious GI problems, and I decided to cut out milk. So I was pretty close to getting towards, the final step to plant-based. And then I started reading about plant-based eating. And I thought, well, maybe that's going to help a lot. And it's not a big stretch because I really only had to cut out eggs at that point and a bit of fish here and there. So I decided to cut it all out, and I did. And I never really looked back. And that was about 15 years ago. I immediately noticed health benefits. So I thought, okay, well, this is doing something good. And then my stomach issues improved drastically. So then, I continued though as a young adult to learn as I went, so to speak. But as veganism became more popular, obviously more resources became available. I was able to learn along the way and educate myself as more studies came out and it became more mainstream, I guess you could say. And then there was, you know, a lot of trial and error where I'd take a step maybe in the wrong direction, but then I'd take 2 steps in the right direction, seeing what did work for me and what didn't work for me. And I mean, I've always really been an animal lover. And so when I first stopped eating, it was for eating vegan or eating meat and going vegan. It was for mainly health benefits that I had read about. But I mean, I went vegetarian because I loved animals. So that was already an underlying part of my journey. And it just made sense to me at that point to connect it eventually and go, okay, well, I love these creatures. And it gave me more fuel, I guess you could say, to stick to what I was exploring. I remember my family thinking, oh God, here's another fad Kaylin's gonna, you know, go through. But it ended up, I mean, it's been 15 years and I have been raising both of my biological children vegan since birth. So I don't think I'm going back. I think this is it. And, you know, there were a lot of hints along the way for me. I remember, for example, being a young kid and eating meat at the dinner table and just, I couldn't handle eating anything on a bone. I couldn't handle if there was a vein in my food. I would lose my cool and just be like, Mom, I'm not eating this, you know. So there was always kind of this inner part of me that struggled with consuming animal products anyway. So that was kind of like the start of it all for me. And then it was just this continual journey of the more I learned, the more I changed what I was eating. And that really, I guess, is kind of how I got started and ended up where I am today, with a lot of, you know, little things changing here and there in between.
Thanks for that. It's always nice. I always love hearing people's, you know, stories about how they get started and how they come to all of this. And one thing that I notice in most people's stories is no matter why you start, whether it's for health reasons or, you know, or if you start for ethical reasons or environmental reasons, it always sort of comes full circle and you end up realizing the benefits of all the different angles, right? And I love that. So thanks. Absolutely. So were there things that you struggled with as you transitioned to a vegan diet? This is 15 years ago. Pretty different.
Yeah. Oh, let me start the list. One was veganism wasn't really a thing. I know that there were fringe vegans and whatnot, but I didn't know any vegans personally. And I lived in Vancouver at the time. And I didn't have one vegan friend. It just wasn't a thing. There was the Nom restaurant, which served some vegan food. And there was this, and I think it's still there, it was called Paradise Vietnamese Noodle House, run by 2 Vietnamese sisters who were adorable, and everything was vegan. And that was the only vegan restaurant I knew of at the time in Vancouver. And it was on the New West Burnaby border. So we would go there, you know, once a month and things like that. But other than that, there weren't a lot of options. It was in university, you know, hanging out with my friends a lot. So restaurant options were almost non-existent if I was just going out in a group. My friends made fun of me because I always had my baggie. And my baggie consisted of things I could throw onto a salad to make it more enjoyable. So, you know, I had my seeds and nuts and dried fruit in this little baggie in my purse all the time, or a granola bar tucked in there that I knew was, you know, vegan or something really random. And that I could always throw in at the last minute to make my meal more enjoyable. I relied really heavily on my cooking abilities to veganize food at home. I've been cooking as long as I can remember. My mom used to do catering. So I started working in restaurants at the age of 13. So I've been cooking in a professional sense since I was 13. So all of the classically trained kind of cooking skills that I have from those experiences, I just figured out by trial and error. Those were those trial and errors of how to veganize things when I was at home. And I had a giant deep freeze where I would just make giant batches of things and I'd freeze them in meals. And my friends would just come over and, you know, open up the deep freeze and be like, oh, Kaylin's got some weird lasagna with lentils in it, this rice dish with, I don't know what that is. And I'd be like, oh, it's tofu, you know, like, so it was a lot of trial and error. Another challenge was I traveled a lot. I was really, I've been to, I think, 29 or 30 countries in my life, and most of them I was vegan. So I always tell people, if I can travel through Africa as a vegan, you can be a vegan in Canada, I promise. So, you know, traveling through Europe, Africa, and Asia, all as a vegan, I always had to get creative with meal options. When there were language barriers, I had to keep it really simple. I learned that the hard way, because when you ask, for example, for a taco in Thailand, but it comes with spaghetti noodles in it, maybe something got lost in translation. So I learned to keep things simple. You know, ordering a pizza with no cheese on it in Italy, or sticking with the marinated veggies that night because I knew it would be vegan, and eating some peanuts when I got back to the room to balance out the hunger and need nutritional needs. Or you know, lots of local starches and veggies throughout Africa. And I also noticed that often in a lot of the countries I visited, that the local staples that people were eating were usually vegan, and just by default. So I'd often have what I saw local people having, and it often came as a shock to them because they'd be like, but you're white and you probably have money. Why aren't you ordering the meat dish? You know, and I'd be like, no, I really just want the cheaper veggie dish. And they'd be like, but why? Like, you know, like it was definitely an interesting concept to them. But I knew, like, okay, that's what they're eating. It's probably vegan. So you find these little tricks to kind of help you through these challenges. But definitely nowadays, when I see people going vegan, I'm like, oh, let me tell you some war stories, you know, because it's just so different.
Yeah, totally is different. It's so different. I mean, even in Vancouver, you know, we have one of our the people who's listening here tonight is saying she's tuning in from New York, and it's easy to eat out vegan and making vegan foods at home there. So, I can completely relate to that too. The travel stories and so on. So, yeah, I think but it is very different today, and thank goodness. You know, it's becoming more mainstream, it's easier, but I would like to talk a little bit more about that further, maybe a bit later in the program, because it is something that comes up in the support network group a lot. How do I, you know, what are those tips and tricks for eating out, or eating out with family who want to go and eat at a steakhouse or something like that? So maybe we can come back to that.
Absolutely.
But I know you've been on a personal health journey in the last couple of years in particular, and I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting. I mean, I guess most people in Powell River only knew me when I moved here, and I was extremely pregnant when I moved here. I was 3 weeks away from having my baby, and she was born on her due date. So we just kind of made it, unpacked our house, and I had the baby. I actually started getting really interested in health and wellness in my 20s, and so I was like, I had a pretty traumatic childhood and teen years with a lot of body shaming that led me to seek a lot of validation for changes. And that ultimately led to, I did start getting interested in fitness, but it also led to a pretty serious eating disorder and unhealthy exercise habits, body dysmorphia. And at that time, so I was exercising and eating better, but I wasn't doing it correctly. And I was a fitness instructor at the time, working in Vancouver as a fitness instructor. So it wasn't a healthy process the first time I went through kind of my awakening, I guess you could say. I was doing it for the wrong reasons, was really why. So, you know, fast forward about 6 years, I've been, you know, obsessed with not eating too much and exercising around the clock. And then I met my now husband. My husband is an amazing person. When I met him, he had 5 children already. And I decided within a few months of meeting him to move across Canada to live with him and his 5 children. Everything in my life changed very quickly. I couldn't prioritize not eating well. I couldn't prioritize exercise. I was pregnant within a few months of living with him. So I had a very drastic change to my body, and I was suddenly responsible for someone else growing inside of me. And it kind of was a really important wake-up call. But then I kind of shifted the other way, where I had all these responsibilities and I was not prioritizing myself in a different way. So I wasn't making time for exercise. I wasn't focusing on eating as healthy as I could have been. And then I had some complications with both of my pregnancies with hip displacement and bursitis, which caused me to not be able to exercise at all on the doctor's orders. So all of this kind of this kind of sent me into a tailspin of not being in a great place mentally, not being in a great place physically, and I was not able to kind of focus on myself until my youngest daughter reached the age of 2. So she's 4.5 now. And at that point, when I knew that she could be more independent, she didn't need to breastfeed anymore, and I could kind of detach, so to speak, I made a commitment to getting back to myself, but for the right reasons. And those reasons were my kids. It was totally different than the first time I went through changing myself. I wasn't looking for validation from other people. I was looking to be, and am still always looking to be, the best parent and role model I could be for my kids. So it just kind of put everything in a different light for me, this second go around, as I would say, of exploring health and wellness. So after my body had been through these drastic changes with pregnancy and the hip issues and everything, I kind of sat down and I just said, the most important thing in my life now are these girls, these beautiful children. And I never want them to go through what I went through. I never want them to feel like they're not loved, like they're not worthy, like the way their body is shaped somehow should validate their value. And I just wanted to be strong and there for them. And that type of motivation allowed me to focus on my health and wellness in a way that I didn't know was possible. So this journey, as you called it, over the last few years, the focus hasn't been on weight loss for me. It hasn't been on what other people think of me. It's been on, am I there for my kids? Can I go to the park and run around with them? If my daughter wants to learn karate, am I able to help her practice? If my child falls down, can I run over and pick her up? A big part of this too is, as some of you know, my husband has a very serious chronic illness. He has advanced Crohn's disease, and it has gotten quite bad in the last 6 years or so. And I grew up also with a disabled parent. I know what it's like to have a parent be very ill and not be able to be there for you. And I just think that in any way that I can provide a strong parent for my kids when my husband can't be at his strongest, I have to. There's no question. That's my job. That's what I signed up for with becoming a mother, and that's what I want to focus on. So I want my kids to always have at least one parent who can be there for them, and we always tag off. I'm not saying my husband's not an amazing dad, because he is, but are there times when he's in the hospital for a month? Absolutely. And they need me, and I have to be physically strong, mentally strong, emotionally strong. And health and wellness is so much more than just, your body and what you eat, right? But they all tie in together. And I really do use exercise and healthy eating to help keep my mind in a good place where I can be there and be ready for whatever kind of gets thrown at us. Because I think if I didn't have it, I'd probably be an alcoholic at this point. And I don't even drink alcohol, but I'm kind of thinking like there was probably 2 paths here. I could have started, health and wellness and taking care of my body and mind, or I could have started drinking, and luckily I chose the one path, right? So that's kind of, I guess, where the journey is at right now. Just really thinking about my why, and my why being to be that role model for the girls.
That's incredibly inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's such a personal story, and it's incredibly inspiring. And I think that, in the work that I do with people who are looking at transitioning to a plant-based diet, that's such a huge piece, is finding your why. And like you said, it's not about weight loss. It's not about, these individual things that, how other people think of you or what they think of you. It's about, your own thing and why you're doing it. And often children or grandchildren come into that, right? And being able-bodied and able to be there for them. But you've just put it so eloquently. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you have all these different skills, these amazing skills and this amazing approach. that you've been telling us about. What would you say are some of your key tips for people who are looking to become healthier and get motivated to make some changes in their lives, whether that's with food, fitness, or lifestyle habits?
Yeah. So again, like the big thing for me, the like cornerstone or pillar of all of this is really finding your why. And I can't really stress that enough because like I said, I've been through this process twice and my why was very different in both situations. And in one, I treated my body horribly and I went through very painful experiences with my relationships with myself and was ultimately back to square one. And then I had a totally different why this time around. And I'm happy. Everything is paced. I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel like I have to fit a certain expectation of anybody's, even myself. I'm quite gentle with myself now compared to where I've been. So the why has to be deeper than I want to lose weight or I want to feel healthy. Why do you want those things? Like, why is that important for you? For me, like I said, it's to be an awesome mom who can always make sure her kids feel safe and loved and can be there, right? So my number one is always find your why. Really think about it. Take the time to kind of do that deep digging because you can always come back to it then. Like when you're in a situation where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I can do this, finding that why again, it gives you that anchor, you know, to go, oh no, wait, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm standing up for myself in this situation, or this is why I'm saying, no, I can't participate in that. This is why I'm setting a boundary in any aspect of your life. That why has got to be there. So that's tip number one. The next thing I always tell people, like when I'm talking to them, if they're asking my opinion, my humble opinion, is that starting with small changes is so important. It's great when people are like, I'm going to do all these things tomorrow and I have all this excitement. And it's not that having excitement's a bad thing. It's about what's realistic in your life and what can you handle at that moment. So I always think that if you make small changes that are easy to achieve and work up from there, you're probably going to be more successful. Habits are psychologically a very tricky thing to work with, and usually drastic change leads to failure. There's a lot of data on how habits can't be dropped, but need to be replaced, for example, in order to be successful, right? There's a lot of data that shows that doing things that push you too far into a stress zone won't stick for more than a month. You know, things like this that we have to consider. So, for example, when I decided I was going to start working out again. Even though I used to be a fitness instructor and I used to work out sometimes 5 times a day, that's not where I was anymore. That wasn't realistic for my lifestyle. And it didn't work the first time around. It wasn't sustainable. So I started by lifting weights for 10 minutes at a time on my breaks at work, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. That was it. I would literally sit there on a break while my students were meandering and I'd just be doing bicep curls. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, just doing some bicep curls, you know? And at first it felt kind of weird, but they just got used to it. You know, like after seeing me do this for a week, they didn't care. And I didn't really care what they thought because I knew it was a good option for me. And it was how I had to start the habit. And after a few months of that, I started going to a gym a few times a week. And then it was very gradual, you know, and I just started to build the habit piece by piece. So I didn't start going, oh, I'm going to start going to the gym 5 days a week. That's not how I started. You know, it took me months of 10 minutes at a time, you know, maybe 2-3 times a day, and then twice a day at the gym, or twice a week at the gym, maybe 3 times a week at the gym to, you know, to build it to where I am now. But that's what builds lasting habits, in my opinion, is not overwhelming yourself. Sorry, did you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say, I think that's fantastic advice. I think that's very wise. Did you have
the next? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just have one more. Yeah, okay. And it kind of just
excellent. Awesome. These are great.
This is the last one, but it kind of really ties into what I've just said, and that's don't be hard on yourself. You know, I can't tell you how many people I speak with, friends, clients, family, and they're just beating themselves up. And the thing is, you're a human. Like, we make mistakes so many times throughout the day. It's just part of who we are. It's how we're wired. And no matter where you are on your journey, you deserve love. You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. That doesn't change based on what size you are. That doesn't change based on what you're eating. You always deserve those things, and not just from other people, but from yourself as well. So I always remind people that, like, negative self-talk, and I get it because I've been there, but it's just a burden that's adding to the struggle that you're having. So anything you can do to be more gentle and kind, you know, like I had to work a long time for when I started saying, oh, I'm no good at this. I had to go, I just tried my best, and next time I might do better, I might not, but I did my best this time, you know, or that wasn't my best, and that's okay. And it takes a long time to say those things and believe them, you know, like years, honestly, but it's important to start.
Absolutely. Another good, very, very good tip. Thank you. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. So I told you that we wanted to talk about holidays. So let's talk about holidays. They are approaching, and sometimes there is anxiety. We've been talking a little bit in the group about this, and it's something that I hear a lot from people, especially when they're transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle and the holidays are approaching and they're thinking about whether or not, you know, how this is going to go for them, and how can they you know, go out and go to the usual gatherings, and especially not just transitioning to plant-based, but also how do I sort of keep on the healthy habits that I've been working on. So I'd really love for you to share. You obviously have a ton of wisdom to share, and I would really love to hear how you approach the holidays, and if you have any fitness or other tips that might be helpful for people.
Sure. So again, I will start with always be gentle and kind with yourself. It is the holidays. It is a time of happiness and enjoyment, and you are not going to eat perfect throughout the holidays. Accept it and move on, right? Like a lot of people get very hung up on like, oh, but you know, this month, like you know, like 3 of these days I ate really poorly. And it's like, yeah, but it's a month out of your life. You know, this is not your full life. This is not the big picture. And what you eat in a short period of time is not what's important. What you eat in a big period of time is what's important. So, you know, like personally, I follow an 80-20 rule 100% of the time. So essentially that means 80% of the time I'm making good, healthy choices, and 20% of the time I'm having whatever I want, but I'm doing that all the time. So that means there's always treats built into my diet. There's always something delicious that I can have each day. Like I'm not going to not eat chocolate. Like, sorry, that's just never going to happen. I love dark chocolate. It's staying in my diet, right? So I think first of all, you know, be realistic and set something that as a plan that you know you can stick to it. So that might be, for example, I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk 3 times a week over the holidays. And maybe that's not as much as you're used to doing, but it's a plan that you know you can stick to with the chaos that's happening. It's a plan that you know is realistic, and you won't be beating yourself up over failing it because you know you can achieve it. So I always think that, first of all, if you're going to make a plan, make it something that you know you can stick to. Don't be like, well, I'm not going to eat any treats all of the holidays, and I'm going to, you know, have salad on Christmas Day, because that's probably not going to happen. And then you're just going to have those feelings of guilt and negative food thoughts, which have no place. Like we should not be having negative food thoughts, especially around the holidays. So the other thing I always say, you know, so if you do it, you know, you stick to your plan, great. If you don't sweat it. You know, every minute is a new minute to do something different, right? So don't beat yourself up over it. I was just reading a statistic that the average woman gains less than a pound over the holiday season. But this is a huge time where people are freaking out about weight gain and losing their minds, especially women. And really it all kind of comes out in the wash as not really a big deal, right? So focusing on your self-care is important as well, I think. Thinking about, I'm going for a walk because it makes me feel good, not I'm going for a walk because I ate shortbread, right? Or I'm going to do some yoga now because I want to stretch and focus on myself and my mind, not I'm going to do yoga because I feel bad that I had gravy on my potatoes, right? So changing that narrative in your head, I think, is really important as well, just to help you stick to your goals. When we associate them with something positive instead of something negative, you're more likely to do it. So if I say I'm going for a walk because I enjoy getting fresh air versus I'm going for a walk because I ate that cookie, one has a very positive connotation and one has a negative one. And people are more likely to stick to the one that they've associated with something positive in terms of their wellness. So those are some ways to maintain or keep up your habits. Don't have the expectation that they're going to be as great as, the months that aren't holidays, but stick to a plan of some sort that you feel is realistic for you.
I think that's again, really great advice. And that's actually what we're talking about over the this week and next week in the group is making a plan. And I think just that having that, setting that intention at the beginning of the month can really set you up for success, and thinking that I completely agree with you about being realistic and not, I think that's a huge thing about, getting out of the deprivation mindset too, is not thinking, well, I'm not going to have any treats. The likelihood is that you are going to have some treats, but just making that intention and planning ahead of time is so important. And Aditi is mentioning how in the chat that she's getting mentally prepared for holiday eating with her family. She's going to enjoy their company and food and plan some workout time. So that's it. Like, it's different for everybody. Whatever you makes it feel like the holidays are going to be, will make the holidays feel great for you. I think that's the whole point, is just to think about it and put some thought into that ahead of time. But on that same note, obviously you're an amazing cook and a baker, and I wondered if there are kitchen tips that you can share in terms of making. Oh, we lost her. Okay, so hi everybody. Guess what?
Back. Sorry, it froze on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, everybody suddenly froze, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Oh, I thought you got kicked off, but you all of a sudden disappeared, and Peter came up really big on my screen.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened.
He was looking very engaged, though. So my question was around cooking and baking. Are there tips that you have in terms of, that I think one of the things is that I always really like to emphasize is, one, you can have an incredible vegan holiday meal without feeling any kind of missing, the turkey or the this or that, but also healthier versions of things, like not using a pound of butter or a pound of margarine or anything like that. There are things that you can do to make the things that feel traditional and comforting and delicious, but they don't have to be full of fat. So or sugar or salt or other, unhealthy things that we often associate with these really rich foods. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about any tips that you might have to sort of healthify dishes that will still taste amazing and be everyone will be happy with.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is one of my favorite things, is developing healthier versions of things that already exist. And, I think it does definitely depend on you personally, and where you're at with your cooking skills and how much you like cooking even. Nowadays you can get a vegan version of almost everything in the store. So if cooking's not your thing, I don't think that you're all as lost, because I think we know that you can pick up a tofurkey, you can pick up these things pretty easily. But like you were saying, I find most recipes in general call for way more fat than they need. I'm always cutting the fat, usually in half or more. Sometimes I leave it out completely, depending on the recipe, and nobody notices, or it's like I cut it from like a fourth of a cup to a tablespoon, like things like that. And people don't even maybe realize that that's possible. So for example, when I make muffins or quick breads, I don't use oil, and I don't think anyone's ever noticed. I used to sell them at the deli and people were coming back and paying me for them. So it never seemed to be an issue. When I make like those kinds of things, I might use applesauce, or I might use bananas, or I might use soft tofu or something like that, that still gives you a nice comforting effect, but it doesn't have the fat in it, right? I also think that it's easy to sneak in healthy components. So if you do want to make a recipe that is maybe a little less healthy, why not put a little extra bang for your buck in? So for example, I might add hemp seeds or hemp powder or chia seeds or flax seeds to cookies or cakes, or even my savory breads, because why not? Like just throw them in, get a little extra protein, even if it is maybe an unhealthy, I shouldn't say unhealthy, a less healthy food option, right? You can kind of bolster it up with something else. One of my favorite things is using white beans to make things like gravy and sauces. I don't have to make a traditional roux with fat and fat and and flour. I can zing up something with some white beans and some nooch and good seasonings. And there is a recipe on my blog for a beautiful white bean gravy that we make for every holiday.
Oh.
Yeah, it's lovely, and my kids love it. The other thing I've recently, well, in the last year, I've really fallen in love with my air fryer. I am just over the moon. I air fry everything and anything I can. So I know that's not something everybody has, but if you do have an air fryer, I'd say embrace it and start using it, because you can make some really cool things with an air fryer, just by trial and error. I did our Brussels sprouts at Thanksgiving in there, and the kids loved them. They just thought they were great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a lot of air fryer fans, I think, in the group. I'm just gonna post the link to your blog in the chat here for everybody. And I'd love it if you would tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's a little less than a year old now. No, a little over a year, sorry. And it pretty much has come from, my son makes fun of me a lot. My oldest son, he's 20, and he makes fun of me because when I make something delicious, he goes, "Oh, how'd you make that?" I'm like, "I don't know, just watch." Because I never write anything down. I'm horrible about measuring things. Like, I just kind of go based on instinct because, like I said, I've been cooking professionally and whatnot from a young age. So I don't really measure. I don't take the time to write down what I did. I just hope for the best. And if it's great, great. Maybe I'll make it again one day. And this was kind of driving him crazy. So I said, maybe it would be a good idea to start writing down some of our favorites. And maybe people who feel like healthy vegan food is difficult would want to see it too. And I, like, as you can maybe tell from this, I've got a little bit of a busy life. Like, it's a little bit crazy. So I thought, well, if I can make it in my kitchen with everything that's going on and that we're juggling, I know that somebody who is maybe newer to plant-based eating can do it too. So that's kind of where it came from. That's why we called it Kaylin's Kitchen Chaos, because whenever I make something, it is chaos. I have a naked 4-year-old doing yoga in the background. I have, a 9-year-old practicing her musical theater in another space. I have a German Shepherd running around, like, trying to get my attention. Like, it's just insane. Just so you guys know, we have 4 kids living at home. We have 2 dogs and 4 cats in the house. So it's pretty much like a circus all the time. So that's why I know if I can make this recipe in my kitchen on my schedule, it's accessible to the majority of people out there. And I try to keep it simple in terms of, I'm not going to make you go like pick, golden barley from the foothills of Peru or something weird like that. They're pretty basic ingredients that you can find anywhere in Powell River. And same with, you don't have to have a ton of equipment to make them. I try to keep them pretty simple. Food processor is one that I use a lot, or a blender. But I often will give an alternative if you don't have those things. So it's just a real focus on what can you make that's healthy. Most of them are low to no oil, quick and easy. My kids make a lot of the recipes with me, which makes them ultimately harder. But if they can help, I figure that most adults can probably handle it. So I just want people to see that you can make delicious, healthy food, even if you're super busy or you're not super skilled in the kitchen. It's possible to do.
That's great. That is really very inspiring. And I know that we'll have lots of people checking out the blog. That white bean gravy sounds amazing. I'm gonna have a look at that and maybe put it on my Christmas menu. That's awesome. And Chris, or Cincy and Chris are asking, does your blog have your yummy beet burgers?
The beet burgers have not gone on there yet. My husband is holding a lot of the deli recipes near and dear to his heart in case we have to open again. We had to close because Jim had to get surgery. That was why the deli closed. And I have 3 other jobs, so I couldn't stop my other jobs to run it full time. He's doing well now, but he is still recovering from them. He had 4 surgeries this year. So it's not a realistic endeavor at this time. We might, don't tell anyone yet, but we're thinking about doing the farmers market soon, possibly.
I think lots of happy people.
We're not totally sure. We're exploring that option a little bit. But again, it kind of all comes back to, I want to focus on his health, and I want to focus on, him becoming the best that he can be given the limitations that he's facing. So no, recipe's not there yet, sorry, but maybe I'll be able to pry it out of his hands. You know, I created the recipe, but he's very, very like, don't tell anyone about like these recipes. I'm like, okay, man.
So what does your holiday menu look like? What are the must-haves on your table?
Yeah, so we do a completely traditional spread, but veganized. So like I said, my mom is a hardcore cook, like, and she loves cooking. And she's not vegan, but she has done an amazing job of making vegan food for me and obviously her grandchildren over the years. She always jokes, she's like, I should write a book called "Oh shit, my vegan kid is coming for dinner," because she's come up with some good. She's done a lot. So I, was trained to cook traditional turkey dinners as a child and everything, and have done that more times than I'd like to admit. So I just started veganizing everything that you'd see at a traditional Christmas dinner. So my absolute must is stuffing. I am a stuffing-aholic. It's my favorite. I cook it obviously in a pan though, not up a dead bird's bum. And I usually start with like a sprouted grain bread as the base. I really like Silver Hills because it's from close to my hometown. I grew up one town over from where that company started. I usually cut down the oil and use veggie broth in place. We always have Brussels sprouts, which are extra great in an air fryer. I'll let you know. I never add oil or margarine to my mashed potatoes, and I never peel them. So I do rustic mashed potatoes every year, and my kids will seriously, if I make a pot of mashed potatoes, you can't even see it on the screen, but the biggest pot you can imagine, my kids will eat the whole thing. It's their absolute favorite thing. So we throw the potatoes in our Instant Pot with whole chunks of garlic, and we do a garlic mashed potato. And then I just use veggie broth and maybe a bit of soy milk to make them creamy, but I don't put any oil in, and nobody ever notices. And then we also do vegan turkey. We do a seitan-based one. We're not a gluten-free family, and that was something we sold at the deli a lot was our vegan turkeys. And it's a seitan bean-based concoction. We do roasted root vegetables, so usually yams and parsnips. We do our gravy, which is the white bean-based gravy. We do homemade cranberry sauce, which I sweeten usually with date sugar and coconut sugar. We do pretzel buns, which are probably the least healthy thing on our table, but we don't care because they taste good. And we usually do quiche, chickpea-based quiche, which we also used to sell at the deli. And then a strawberry spinach salad with an orange dressing. It's kind of a homage to Jim's stepmother, who always makes that on the holidays because it's the one thing she knows she can make for vegans.
That sounds amazing. Oh my goodness. And what's for dessert?
Usually we have pie. I do make a lot of pies, pumpkin pie, apple pie. Sometimes we do a crisp. It depends how busy and how late I was up wrapping presents the night before. But yeah, we like to mix it up. We usually make a nice cream with it, which it's just a banana ice cream, but we mix in cocoa and run it through the Vitamix so it's nice and creamy. Sometimes we'll do a coconut milk whipped cream to go with it as well, just depending on, again, time.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for all that inspiration. Oh my goodness.
Now I'm hungry.
Yeah, really. I know. I'm looking forward to Christmas dinner. I am going to, we're about 15 minutes out from the end of the event. So I just wanted to, I do have a couple of other questions for you, but I'm going to open it up here. And if you guys who are watching would love to see your faces if you turn your camera on. And if anybody has questions, please we'd love you, just unmute yourself or put your hand up or put them in the chat for Kaylin. This is your opportunity to pick her brain about healthy holiday traditions or share something you'd like to share. Questions that have come up as you've been listening to all her amazing sage advice. Aditi is asking, what do you like to do for your self-care?
That's a good question. It really depends on what type of self-care. So if it's physical, I obviously enjoy doing yoga as an instructor, but I'm also really into running. I don't run for weight loss. I don't run to be stronger. I actually run for my mental health. a lot of people go, oh, you run. Is that how you lost a lot of weight? I'm like, no, I lost the weight before I started running. I was not a runner before, you know? So I run a lot for my mental health, and I love crosswords. I do a couple crosswords a night. Again, word geek, English dork. So I love a good crossword.
I love all of those things. And what I really love about it is it just shows how interconnected everything is, right? There's all these different pillars of health, whether it's things that keep us intellectually stimulated, things that help us to connect with others, things that help our mental health, our stress levels, our, you know, obviously our food and things like that. So Sarah is asking, does Kaylin charge per hour or have a monthly program for personal training? Actually, this is a great opportunity. Please tell us about what you're offering as a personal trainer.
I'm offering, so I do have I'm in my gym right now. Actually, I have a personal gym in my home where I train clients locally, and I am offering currently, because I'm just kind of getting this started. I was working up at Abbott, but now I'm here at my house. I'm doing sessions for $40 a session for the first 10 sessions. So if people buy 10 sessions, they're $40 each, which I don't know if you know the cost of personal training in this town, but that's quite a good deal. And that's my current deal right now. And it is, like I said, out of my home. So there's no gym fee on top of that you have to pay. You don't have to get a membership somewhere. That's currently what I'm doing. Yeah.
And Melissa's on the spot testimonial. I'm a client and enjoy every minute I spend in this studio.
It's great because my kids love Melissa too. Well, we all love Melissa, but they always get excited when she comes over. I have to like fight them out of the gym. I'm like, don't come into this space. It's my workspace. I have to tell Melissa something. No, you don't, 4-year-old. Get out of here.
That's awesome. So are you, how do people get in touch with you if they want to chat with you some more, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll put my email in the chat, or I'll put my email and my phone number. A lot of people don't like to call because it's a Manitoba number and they're like, is this a scam? No, it's not. It's really my number, but you can email me or contact me on Instagram, but my email is just kaylinfoisy@gmail.com. So I'll put that in there. And like I said, you can't text or call me. I don't answer my phone during the day because I'm a teacher. So I can't. My students would probably be like, what are you doing if I answered my phone? So you can leave a message and I will get back to you. Or like I said, on Instagram, I check my messages regularly, and on Facebook. So those are both great options. And it's Kaylin's Kitchen Chaos is the.
I put that in the chat as well. So I think people should be able to see. Sorry, is that your Instagram? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, my Instagram is Kaylin's Kitchen Chaos as well. Like that's the handle. You can just look it up. And it also has links to all my recipes on there. So if you go into my bio, you can actually click on the link tree and it'll link to every recipe that I have on my blog.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't see any immediate other questions. So I'm going to ask you top 3 recipes that people should try out on your blog.
Definitely the bean gravy, given the season. Like that's, yeah, definitely one of my top ones. I have a tahini orange cookie that can be made gluten-free if people want. And it's really, really delicious. It's a chocolate tahini orange cookie, actually. So there's the oil or the fat and it comes from the tahini. There's no processed oil in it. And it's a really, really lovely one. And probably, oh gosh, this is hard. Oh, there's a lot of ones up there that I really love. The yam flatbread is pretty delicious and easy. It's like 3 ingredients. 2 if you don't put salt, you know. So, and it's a nice, really stretchy, delicious flatbread, and it's jam-packed with yams. So
awesome. So what about as the other thing that's sort of come up a lot recently for members of our group, and I know a couple who are going to be watching this, the recording, is that, you know, the idea of being difficult to eat out, or if you're going to a family gathering where people are not vegan, how do you handle that? Do you have any tips or thoughts about ways to approach that during the holiday season?
The snarky part of me wants to say just make vegan friends, but I know that's not realistic always. So I always bring at least one dish that is enough to share with everyone that's vegan and I know is safe and that I can enjoy. And it's a great way to introduce people to plant-based food, start a conversation. And obviously every situation can be different. So if you're going in blind, I definitely recommend eating a little bit before you go. Like if you're going to someone's house for the first time and you don't know if they understand your dietary choices, have a little pre-meal, pre-game, but with food. I've done that many times, and I've done that with my kids if they're going to a birthday party, for example, and I don't know if they're going to have vegan food, because my kids are vegan and they're 9 and 4, so it happens. We keep cupcakes that are vegan in our freezer that I pull out and I ice right before they go to a party if I don't know if there's going to be a vegan option. A lot of parents are great though and know we're vegan and say, hey, I ordered a vegan panago pizza for your daughter. Or, I have a little treat from Just Soul Food that I've put to the side for her during cake time or whatever. Like there's a lot of really thoughtful people out there. But if you are going in blind, I'd say definitely bring something to share. Maybe pre-game with a little bit of something that's going to hold you over till the event is over. If you're going somewhere where the people will think of your diet, maybe just confirm with them what they have in mind, because sometimes people are totally, like they think they understand, but they're not totally clear. Just the other day at school, Scarlett, she's my 9-year-old, she's so sweet. She's such a pure little soul. And she was eating dry cereal at the breakfast club. Not because she doesn't eat breakfast at home, but she wants to be included. She wants to eat breakfast at the breakfast club with her friends, and they had no vegan milk. So she was eating dry cereal. She said, it'd be really nice if you guys considered getting some soy milk. And the next day they had soy milk. And they said, oh, and I think this granola bar is vegan. And it wasn't. And she kind of gave them this little education. She said, it's nice that you thought that this was vegan, but I just want to show you which ingredient isn't vegan, so for next time. And as an adult, we can do that too. We can say, hey, what were you thinking of making? And it may be something they say, triggers you, go, oh, do you know if that margarine's vegan that you're planning to put on those carrots? Because I don't mind bringing over some margarine or whatever, to help out with that. When I lived in Winnipeg, we went to my in-laws for every single holiday meal, and my mother-in-law was like having stress panic attacks over this whole vegan thing because she just didn't get it. And I didn't want her to feel that way, but she wanted to be inclusive. So we just talked about it, right out of the gate. I said, just when you're making the carrots, put some to the side before you put the butter on them. When you're making the mashed potatoes and you mash them up, please take out a bowl for me and the kids before you add your milk and butter. And she was grateful, because she just didn't even think that way, right? It didn't occur to her how easy it could be. But then I would take care of the main dish because that was too much for her, and that's fair. If it's overwhelming for the person who's hosting you, it's totally okay to say, hey, I got my main dish. I appreciate that you're doing these other things for me.
Yeah, I think those are all really good suggestions. I love the suggestion of, just asking them to separate out a little bit for you ahead of time. That's something, like you said, an easy thing that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think about. But I think that you've hit it on the head in terms of it's about communication, right? And how you talk to people. And most people, I would say I've never had an experience where someone's turned around and said, oh, don't be so picky or anything like that.
They want to include you.
Yeah. And it's how you approach it too, right? And like you said, just bringing something to share. So if you were going to suggest something that someone might bring to a potluck and maybe something that's, pretty easy to make, that if you're going to a potluck, do you have something on your blog maybe that you would suggest that people could make?
Well, all the recipes on my blog are super easy. And so, any of those I don't think you can go wrong with, but a lot of them are components, right? Like, like a dessert or a sauce or some things like that. They're not necessarily full meal deals, but something I always think that people should think about if they're newer to this is make a charcuterie board. I mean, you can buy everything you need for a charcuterie board if you're not into making your own vegan cheese or meats, that's fine. And you can put dried nuts and you can put fresh veggies and you can put a nice hummus and make it like a good bread or whatever, some olives and some smoked tofu. And really, you didn't have to cook anything. And there's a lot of variety there for people to pick at, right? So you can easily buy those things and arrange them on a tray and be done with it if you're not sure what to make, right? But if you are more into cooking, try to make something easy to grab is always my suggestion. So for example, falafels. Falafels aren't that hard to make. Maybe I should put that up on my blog. I do have a good falafel recipe. experiment with chickpea flour and try making some quiche or flatbreads. Chickpea salad pinwheels. There are things that people can just grab and oh wow, that's delicious. Oh, it's vegan. I had no idea. The finger foods are a nice thing to bring in that situation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Okay, I've just posted the information about Kaylin's blog and Instagram. So they're two separate things. So what the blog is on WordPress, and the handle for her Instagram is at Kaylin's Kitchen Chaos. So are there any last questions before we wrap up? Anybody have questions that you want to ask? No questions tonight, Peter? Put you on the spot? No.
No, I don't have any questions. I thought it was a really thoughtful and useful presentation, Kaylin. So thank you very much. And I really liked your tips about finding, your why. That's very important piece of your identity and your purpose, and you can come back to that. And that sort of sets your boundaries and doing incremental things. That's sort of the journey I had too. When I think of some of the challenges I have, because I'm the only person in my family eating this way, and then compared to some of the situations you described, I shouldn't be, so concerned about it. So I thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to share. I really appreciate that.
Okay, we have one last question from Lanny is asking, do you have any favorite recipe books you'd recommend?
Oh, do I ever? Thug Kitchen. I love Thug Kitchen. There's a lot of swearing, which I think makes it awesome. But if you're a more PG person, I'm just giving you the warning. They swear a lot in it, but it's hilarious. So Thug Kitchen is one of my favorites. And then there's one, actually, I think it's the author lives in Victoria, and it's called La Dolce Vegan. It's great. I've had that book. That was the first vegan cookbook I ever bought. And a friend gave it to me. I didn't even know vegan cookbooks existed at the time. That was back in Vancouver, and my very thoughtful roommate saw it somewhere and said, look, I found a vegan cookbook. I go to that book all the time. It is dirty and marked up and ripped, but they have, it's a collection of recipes from many vegans around the world, I guess. And yeah, it's a really, really nice cookbook. So those are probably my two top go-to ones for easier cooking, especially. I have some more complex, like the Dr. Greger books are great, but they're definitely a little more complex in terms of recipe skills. Oh yeah, Oh She Glows is great as well. Again, I'd put that at a more complex level for cooking, but definitely some amazing recipes in it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many great books out there. If you go to Amazon and search, but it's great to get that tip, the information on what people love. And I hadn't heard of the La Dolce Vegan before. I'll have to look.
Really great. And another one I should just mention really quickly that I think would be very good for people in this Zoom meeting is it's called Vegan in 7. So every recipe only has 7 ingredients. So it's really cool if you're looking to make something simple but delicious, like a lot of really great sauces, because it's very like you need blank, 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 and blank, and just go for it kind of thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been really, really informative and interesting and very inspiring too. It's lovely to have you on the speaker series. And thank you to all of you for coming tonight and spending the evening with us and getting our December kicked off on a healthy start. And so yeah, let's just all give her.
Thank you guys so much for coming and listening to me chitter chatter away. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.